All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful and honestly, deeply relatable piece of text simply titled Pressured. I mean, we've all been there, right? Feeling totally overwhelmed by the demands, the heavy expectations, and just the loud voices of the outside world. Well, today, we're going to go on a bit of a journey through this source material. We'll break down exactly what happens to us when we let those external forces take the wheel, and, way more importantly, how we can pull ourselves back from the brink and actually reclaim our personal power. So, I want to kick things off by looking at this opening line. There is nothing in my mind, there is something in influence. Just let that sink in for a quick second. Have you ever had one of those moments where the external pressures, your job, your family, or just society in general, were so incredibly loud that your own internal thoughts were completely drowned out? The author captures that total blankness perfectly right here. It's that kind of scary moment where your own voice goes quiet, and literally the only thing speaking is the influence of everything around you. And this sets up the core conflict of the entire text beautifully. On one side, we have outer influence, and on the other, my own being. This is the ultimate battleground. What the author is describing here is this constant, absolutely exhausting push and pull. Every single day, we're dealing with the heavy demands of the outside world, pushing right up against our internal sense of self. And naturally, while not left side gets too heavy, the right side, our own being, starts to just vanish. Which brings me to a question I want to ask you directly. Have you ever felt completely drained by your environment? In the text, the author talks about being moved about by the wind, not finding my place in between. And look, this isn't just nice poetic imagery, okay? This is basically the literal definition of modern burnout. It's that feeling where you're just being swept along by everyone else's priorities. You're constantly reacting to your environment, and you just never have a solid place to plant your feet and breathe for a second. Okay, moving into section 1, the weight of influence and losing control to the outside world. Let's actually unpack how it feels when literally all our power is handed over to those external forces. The author uses some really visceral language to describe this extreme pressure. Just look at these symptoms. All power is given away. All in my state is replaced. And then it gets intensely physical, being compressed from above and exploded by another force. Wow. This isn't just your everyday stress, this is the complete dismantling of your personal agency. The author is vividly showing us what it feels like to be crushed by expectations on one side and blown apart by sudden demands on the other. Which leads us straight to this incredibly stark realization. I am not boss, and boss is not me. The author actually follows this up in the text by saying, I don't have any motif in mind. When we are under that kind of severe external pressure, we totally lose our internal motivation, our motif, as they put it. We're no longer the CEO of our own lives. We're basically just employees following orders from an outside environment that we have absolutely no control over. Which brings us to section 2, losing the self. The emotional toll of all this pressure. So we've talked about the physical feeling of compression, right? But now we really need to validate the deep, psychological agitation the text is talking about. The author expresses some profound frustration here, writing, I don't want to be crossed one side and then crossed to the other side. Notice how there is no stable center there? It's that feeling of being shoved back and forth across a boundary without ever having a land of your own to stand on. You are constantly on someone else's territory, forced to play by someone else's rules. And that sets up one of the most brilliant concepts in this whole text, the no-one zone. This is a state where your identity is just completely eclipsed. The author asks, where am I in this pressured self/someone outside, in a no-one zone? It's an agonizing state. You feel entirely numbed out and, as the author puts it, totally out of energy. You aren't yourself anymore, but you aren't anyone else either. You're just vacant. It's a total empty tank. So the crucial takeaway here is understanding this pressured self. It's defined entirely by a total lack of control in your own life. The author admits flat out, I don't have control in this life of me. It's absolutely essential that we recognize these symptoms of helplessness, not just in the text, but in our actual everyday lives. Because recognizing the pressured self is the absolute prerequisite to actually changing it. All right, section 3, finding the turning point. This is where we shift from despair into action. I want you to consider this profound question from the text. What should I do with no power? We are pivoting away from the heavy despair of that no-one zone and moving towards some very practical, actionable solutions. Honestly, this is the most vital question in the entire piece. When you are totally empty, completely influenced by everyone else and have zero energy left, what is your next move? How do you actually step out of that wind? Well, here is the author's brilliant answer. The first step to reclaiming your power isn't about fighting back violently or aggressively. It is this: be still and then move with my might. It sounds a bit like a paradox, doesn't it? But the author is suggesting that you counter the chaotic, rushing flow of the outside world by finding absolute, grounded stillness, while simultaneously gathering up your internal strength and motion. You have to anchor yourself first. So let's break down the actual tactical playbook the text lays out for us. When outside influences are trying to sweep you away, here is what you do. First, be still. Second, move with motion, and that means your own intentional movement, not just being blown around by the wind. Third, and this is a massive one, choose to say no. You have to exercise that boundary. And finally, bring it home. When you are feeling totally numbed by the pressure, you have to retreat back to your own internal safe space. But what does bringing it home actually look like in practice? Well, it means realizing that love and compassion are in my truth. The author realizes a really hard lesson here. You cannot cure the numbness of a pressured self with more harshness. The only grounding forces strong enough to counter extreme external pressure are internal truth, love, and genuine self-compassion. That right there is the antidote to the no-one zone. Let's look at Section 4, Steps to Reclaim Power. This is our roadmap for survival. So now we're looking at a very specific, highly sequential roadmap for survival and self-care that the author outlines beautifully. Notice how incredibly clear these instructions are. This is exactly how you rebuild your autonomy. Step 1, first take care of self. Step 2, then stay away of pressure, meaning create literal distance if you have to. Step 3, thereafter, help me first. It's the classic oxygen mask rule, put yours on before assisting others. And step 4, which is just my favorite, lastly, honor my own presence. Just actively acknowledging that you exist and that you matter is a revolutionary act against that pressured self. And I absolutely love this line, I need to pay attention to me, right? It's a rhetorical question, it feels so conversational, but it acts as this crucial self-validation technique. The author is literally seeking permission from themselves to finally be selfish, but in a totally healthy way. This realization is the glue holding the entire healing process together. Yes, you absolutely need to pay attention to you. All right, Section 5, standing with yourself and embracing personal agency. We've reached the final stage of our explainer here, and we're looking at the ultimate realization of personal strength, even when your environment stubbornly refuses to get any easier. This brings us to an incredible contrast. The author fully acknowledges the harsh reality. I think life can be hard. Sometimes environment is tough. They aren't pretending that outside influence magically just disappears forever. But look over on the right side. I need to stand with me. All right. The tough environment is still there, but the internal response has completely shifted. You are no longer being moved by the wind, you're standing firmly with yourself. Which all culminates in this triumphant, super powerful final declaration from the text. Believe in my actions and my rights. I mean, think about where we started this journey. There is nothing in my mind, all power given away. And look at where we ended up. Talk about a complete 180-degree shift. From the total emptiness of the no-one zone to this fierce, unapologetic assertion of personal agency and self-belief. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. We all face external compression. We all face the wind every single day. The real question is, in a tough environment, how will you choose to stand with yourself today? How will you find a way to be still, choose to say no, and actively honor your own presence? Take these lessons from the text, find your stillness, and go reclaim your power. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I highly encourage you to take these insights and really apply them to your week.